If Ohio State misses the NCAA tournament, Jake Diebler's inexperience will be at the center of the conversation.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to a bonus episode of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, the Sports Talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And during this hardwood huddle, we will discuss how Jake Diebler can prove the doubters wrong. But first, roughly 2.5 years ago, Ross Bjork was tasked with replacing Chris Holtmann. Chris Holtmann, his time in Columbus was up. It seemed like he was losing the locker room and his voice was not resonating with the players like it did previously. Holtmann is out. Diebler's in as the interim head coach. He did a lot of good during his time of being the interim leader of the basketball program. Ross Bjork promotes Jake Diebler to full-time head coach. And here we are, fast forwarding to today, and Ohio State is in a spot where they have been over the past few years, on the bubble, a team that is possibly going to miss the NCAA tournament. And Jake Diebler is going to be the conversation, at the center of the conversation, if the Buckeyes miss the tournament once again. Because it's not just about the players. It's not just about some of the assistant coaches. It's about the man leading the team that once again is early. He's a novice, and he is not able to get Ohio State to play strong Buckeye basketball in Big Ten play. In the non-conference, had some pretty good wins. Unfortunately, the past couple of years, the Buckeyes lost to Pitt in the non-conference. But in Big Ten play, you would think they're built for this. They're made for this. They're ready for what's going to come when they play Michigan and Michigan State and IU and Purdue and Wisconsin and Rutgers. And they have won about half of their Big Ten games, which is never good enough. And I think a lot of the issues this year are, you can point back to Jake Diebler and the inexperience and sometimes his inability to get the team to play at a certain level the entire season or raise their level of play as they get deeper into Big Ten play leading into the conference tournament. And that's something that when you're at Ohio State, you need to be a strong Big Ten team. You can't play down to your opponent. You can't just be a team just sleepwalking through games or late in contests. Even if you are the underdog, you can't just cough up games and let upsets slip away from you because you aren't good enough. The Diebler experience is one that a lot of fans are tired of, and they don't want to go further with it. Yes, I know Buckeyes are mainly locked in on the football team, but when you lose to Michigan twice in a season, and the one time Michigan comes to your house, you lose by 21 points, and the narrative after the game is you didn't get the guys ready to play. That's not a good look at all. And for Jake Diebler, I think looking back, he was the safe hire. I think it was easy, especially early in your tenure as an AD, to hire the guy that helped close the season out strong, that made things a little bit better for those players. Also, he can get, this is Jake Diebler, he's able to get John Mobley Jr. to stick around for a second season. He's able to get Amare Bynum to commit to Ohio State. He's even able to get Bruce Thornton to stick around for 4 years. He's able to get some of those guys to stick around, and I believe all three of those guys are strong Buckeyes. But sometimes you got to think. Sometimes you got to lose a little bit. Sometimes you got to lose some players to get the right coach in. And the right coach might be able to keep some of those guys in-house so that he has a core to work with moving forward as he puts together a roster. Jake Diebler was a safe hire. And at the time, while you want a Chris Beard or some are, I didn't make this before, some are not looking at Dusty May as a strong candidate. I don't know why, because he just made it to the Final Four with a mid-major. So you could say he's not a good coach, but he did something there at FAU that would get on everybody's radar and said, oh, this young man can coach. I think Ohio State fans have got a good glimpse of that, especially of late over the recent loss to Michigan, where Michigan's better. They're on a different playing field than Ohio State, and that shouldn't be the case. Yeah, Michigan has had more basketball success, but that doesn't mean Ohio State shouldn't be competitive or they should just go into the game expecting to lose. This experience with Jake Diebler, it's early, but I'm going to ask you a question here and put it in the chat. Are you willing to go another year with Jake Diebler leading the Buckeye basketball program? Let me know your answer in the chat because I'm very curious about that because it could be another year where this same result happens. Maybe it's a strong non-conference play, or play is okay at times in the non-conference, but you still see some weaknesses, and then you get in the Big Ten play, and you're just an average team. You're teetering between 9 through 11 in the Big Ten standings, leading into the month of March. You're on the bubble once again to make the NCAA tournament, and hopefully this doesn't happen where you have to win the conference tournament to simply make the big dance. Very similar to a lot of mid-major teams. When they get to their conference tournament, they know they have to win their conference tournament to make the big dance, because if they don't, doesn't matter what the record is, they're not going to get invited. You don't want to be there if you're Ohio State. But this season is getting very, very close to where Ohio State needs to win the Big Ten tournament to make the big dance. That's not where Ohio State basketball should be. That's not where it should be with these guys on the team. No, not at all. And an inexperienced coach is going to have some coaching errors. It's going to maybe mess up things down the stretch. Maybe they're going to not get the rotation correct. I think some of the portal acquisitions that Jake Diebler made this year or last offseason don't make any sense. I know I keep going back to the bench, but the Buckeyes bench, Ivan Engovan, I think I got his name correct, is decent off the bench. Not a great big man. He's decent. Where's the scoring off the bench? If you're picking up guys in the portal that are backups, shouldn't they be able to put the ball in the basket? No one's asking them to score 20 to 25 a game, but at least give 3 to 5 to 6 points. Give us something productive on the scoreboard. Yeah, you're going to get some fouls. You're going to get some rebounds. Went back to the Virginia box score. The Buckeyes off the bench, Ivan was the only one that scored. I believe he was 2 for 3. He also was the only one that had a rebound. So the other guys gave some minutes. They had some fouls, but they didn't do a lot of the things that were needed for Ohio State to have an upper hand in this game, or in the recent loss to Virginia. So many teams we're talking about today. That's how weird this thing is. Ohio State has had games where maybe they look really bad, or where they look like they can compete and win, but down the stretch, they don't get it done. I don't think Jake Diebler will be a horrible coach for his entire career. I just have a hard time thinking it's the right move for Ohio State to move forward with Jake Diebler, because the Jake Diebler experience hasn't been everything people thought it was going to be. How can Jake Diebler prove the doubters wrong this season? We'll answer that question after the break. This episode is brought to you by Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for. Skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. for those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. And this week's moving to game forward player is none other than Amare Bynum, a young man that played very strong basketball against Virginia. He came out and hit the first bucket of the game, which was a three. It was in rhythm, and you could tell he was locked in and had the bounce that the Buckeyes needed him to have on that night in Nashville. 15 points. He added in a bunch of rebounds, and he was a guy that with John Mobley Jr. out with a hand injury, he raised his level of play, and the Buckeyes are going to need more play like that from him if they're going to make a late push to make the NCAA tournament. These remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on any NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you all for tapping in Locked on Buckeyes. And for making this show your first listen of the day, Jake Diebler has a tough task in front of him to try to rally the troops and keep Ohio State's morale high as they are going into a stretch of games that are pretty much must win. Doesn't matter if you're playing at home or on the road. The Buckeyes have 6 games left, and they must enter every game like it's a must-win game. The next one's coming up tomorrow against Wisconsin, followed it up with a road trip or road trips to Michigan State and Iowa, back home for a game against Purdue, on the road once again to go to Penn State, and then back home to play the Hoosiers of Indiana for the final game of the regular season. And for Jake Diebler, people are going to be talking about him. People are going to be throwing shade at his name. People are going to be talking about the reality that the Jake Diebler experience isn't what people thought it could be. But Jake Diebler's mind and his mission to prove the doubters wrong, not only taking one game at a time, but homie must block out everything else that's happened this year. You can't look at the game against Virginia or Michigan or the loss to Washington on the road. You can't look at those games and just go out there and say, well, those things happen, and we can lean into those narratives and allow those to kind of pull us down and away from our quest to make the NCAA tournament. You can't do that. Sitting at 16-9, I have said all season, especially late in the year, if you get 20 wins as Ohio State, you're going to make the tournament. Now, if you're a player, it's easy to look out there and say, man, this has been difficult. This has been very, very hard. But it's also easy for Jake Diebler to do the same thing. So everybody, Jake Diebler must preach to the players, block all the noise, get off the social media, don't listen to shows, don't watch shows, unless it's this one, and make sure that all you're doing is staying focused on the task to make sure we do what is needed to beat Wisconsin. Don't worry about Michigan State or Iowa or IU. Don't worry about those. Don't even worry about the reality that Ohio State has not won back-to-back Big Ten games since January 17th and January 20th. Those were wins at home over UCLA and Minnesota. And in both of those games, the Buckeyes held their opponents to 74 points, and they scored at least 82. Now, if that's a formula for Ohio State to hit a benchmark in a point scoring total where you're hitting 82 points or at least that many over the next 6 games to make the NCAA tournament, so be it. Go for it. If that's what you got to do, even when you're shorthanded, go for it. That's going to be difficult. because you're not getting much off the bench. You're not getting much scoring, rebounding, or assist, or really production off the bench, which is still annoying me. That I believe there was a number, I forget who it was on TV, but they said that Ohio State and Ken Palm, this was last week, that they were 329th in bench production via Ken Palm. And I'm like, what in the world? I know it's bad. Is it that bad? Now, I don't have the updated number in front of me at the time of this recording, which is why I'm going off my memory. But that just goes to show that it's one of the worst in Division One. That's a Jake Diebler thing. You bring guys in that don't really provide you anything. Why'd you bring them in? Why do you have big men, well, that are tall and they're not big? Now you may say, Jay, like Tilly's literally 7 foot, about 230, 240. Yes, in size he is. But how many times have you seen Christoph Tilly drive to the basket, see somebody down low, and then try to go somewhere else? How many times have you seen Christoph Tilly see somebody down there? He won't even go close to it. Now, there are times that he's going downhill and he'll try to get a layup, but there was a time against Virginia. He was on a fast break. Now, there was a guy guarding him. It was kind of a one-on-one situation. I'm thinking, Tilly, bang on that man. Oh, no. He laid up and missed it. And so I'm thinking to myself, why is it happening? Oh, it all points back to Jake Diebler. Now, I will say, I like the Christoph Tilly addition when I saw him play, and he came from Santa Clara. But one thing we said on this show, we weren't sure how he would be playing in the Big Ten, going from Santa Clara to Ohio State. The expectations are higher. The demand from him is going to be higher, especially knowing the history of Ohio State over the past few years where the Buckeyes have not got strong big man play. You thought Felix Okpara was a young guy you could build around. He transferred to the Southeastern Conference. Zed Key decided to, via some of the nutrition staff at Ohio State, I believe it was the nutrition staff, cut weight. And when he did, he lost what made him great, what made him really good at Ohio State. It happens. He also transferred out. But some of these things are a Jake Diebler thing. He must make sure he has blinders on and stays focused on the task at hand and focused on one game. You block out the previous games. You focus on the one. You don't look at the 16-9 record Ohio State currently has or their record. I believe it's the 8-7 record 8-6 record in conference play. You don't look at those things. All you focus on is the Wisconsin game and block out the previous 25 games that 25 games that Ohio State has played. I remember last week I did a show. My math was off in my head. I thought, I got the number correct. No, it wasn't. I believe the 16 plus 9 that Ohio State has played, the wins and losses, the total games the Buckeyes have played off the top of the dome is 25 games this year. Block out the noise, block out the pass, focus on just one game on Tuesday night, and make sure Diebler is locked in. He has the rotations correct because, like I said earlier, Taysom did a really good job early in the game against Virginia, got some scoring and rhythm, and then we really didn't see that the rest of the game. Encourage guys, push guys, put them in scenarios where they can be successful, and let the chips fall where they may. Thank you for tapping into this bonus episode of Locked on Buckeyes right here on a Monday. And thank you for tapping into the earlier show today discussing Buckeye football. The plan moving forward is to do a full show about the football team, a shorter show about the basketball team. And if we filter in some baseball, some softball, some women's basketball, that might be in an afternoon flow too. Let me know. Do you want to hear more about the Buckeye baseball, softball, or women's basketball teams? Let me know in the chat. And I'm curious because we might filter in some more conversations about other sports at Ohio State during the football offseason. Thank y'all for tapping into Locked on Buckeyes and making the show your first listen of the day. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes on a Monday. We'll see you next time.